Hi, it's Louise from Mobile People Solutions. I have Michelle with me, a local business owner who's now at a stage of growth that she's considering whether it's appropriate for her to adopt a HR strategy.
Hi, Louise. So, just in terms of an HR strategy, do you think all businesses need it? And what is the benefits of having an HR strategy?
The honest answer, Michelle, is no. Ultimately, you don't need a HR strategy if you think it might constrict you or something, or you're happy with the way your business is evolving and growing, and that from a people perspective, everything feels right for you, then, as I say, the answer is no. Ultimately, you don't. But the benefits, as I see it, of having a HR strategy is about the conscious awareness that your people are critical to your success, that you at a point in time evaluate and involve others within your organization to create a vision of what your organization will look like from a people perspective, that you align the organizational goals or the HR strategy to your organizational goals. You create a plan to make all of that vision a reality, and remembering that a HR strategy will affect every employee at every stage of the employee life cycle.
Once I suppose you define that HR strategy and you decide to go for it, what sort of activities would you define as strategic HR?
There are a range of initiatives, Michelle, that can be incorporated into a strategy. So it's very much about working with the client, understanding and presenting a number of different options to them and understanding what's right for their business right now and incorporating that into a strategy plan. So some examples of what I mean by that, and taken right back to the start of the employee life cycle, you might want to adopt a recruitment strategy. So what does good look like for you? What sort of people do you want to be attracting to your organization? How are you going to retain them? And by and large, you're retaining through a really good set of terms, conditions, an attractive, competitive package that you're offering to employees. How do we want to engage with our people? What does that look like from an engagement perspective? What type of culture do we want in this organisation? How are we going to communicate fundamentally with our staff? How are we going to reward and recognise good performance? How are we going to manage our talent? Because the problem is that we have some great people in our organisations, but we don't continue to invest in them. We don't continue to grow. There's no opportunities for them to develop into, and therefore they leave the organisation. So succession planning is one of the critical fundamental issues that I believe any organisation should be looking at. Aligned to that then, what's our learning and development strategy? How do we look after our employees and their well-being? Hugely important topic in the last couple of years, becoming increasingly so, and certainly from 2019, 2020, it was the number one HR priority, which was to look at employee well-being. And a lot of that obviously is around mental health, and we have heard that word continually coming up, and I don't think it has achieved the importance that we need to look on it. If an employee came to you and said that they had been diagnosed with cancer, you would be so responsive, you would be so sympathetic, you would put everything in place to ensure that they had the appropriate time off and the appropriate support. But we still don't do that to the same extent with mental health. And I think we need to really have a strategy around that, particularly as we have more and more of what's termed the millennial generation within our workforces. We need to really get that up to a higher level in our priorities. And finally, what sort of corporate and social responsibility initiatives should this organisation support? All those things can go into a plan. The plan isn't prescriptive. We should have an idea of approximately what month or which quarter we intend to start looking at those. But, moving it out to another quarter typically isn't going, it will elongate the change process that you're involved in, and it might take slightly longer to achieve the results. But ultimately, the fact that it's on a plan and we are committed to trying to deliver that, that's what counts. And we can always work towards and measure our progress and getting to that point. Just because something hasn't made it onto a plan this year doesn't mean to say that we can't look next year and say, yeah, the time is actually right now for us to look at that and let's put that into our plan.
And this doesn't really sound like a short-term thing. To me, it's something that is very much in your long-term planning
Yeah.
and in part of your growth strategy. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it is much easier to implement a HR strategy with a young organization that doesn't really have any bad practice in there yet, hasn't really developed a culture, and the employees are much more open again to a HR strategy being communicated to them versus an organization of 20 years and kind of why now, and there is a bit of suspicion, I have to say, when you try and do something like this, and obviously much more difficult and much longer process to achieve the goals. So no, I mean, there are some quick wins in there. Absolutely, a recruitment strategy, deciding on what sort of person we're going to attract to our organization, that takes effect the first time you do another recruitment campaign. And obviously it takes time to embed those new employees, and there's a bit of natural wastage until, everyone matches that kind of vision that you have. And there has to be some work done on existing employees to engage with them, to communicate to them what it is that you want from your team. But some other things, yeah, it's very much a long term, and it can take a period of time before you'll see that in bottom line.
And so, in your role as an HR consultant and within Opal People Solutions, how do you support businesses in reaching those HR goals? Because they're quite big, aren't they?
My role is very much facilitating the process, giving the ideas, creating the plan, helping them to stay on track. But an external HR consultant in a half day, a fortnight, isn't going to affect the change. Culture is about the way we do things around here. You can't sit and say, this is the culture that I want, and not invest on a day-to-day basis. All the behaviours need to be aligned with what the culture, what you're trying to achieve through this HR strategy. It's a day-to-day, and absolutely, I'm there to support, I'm there to advise, I'm there to keep you on track. But fundamentally, a HR consultant cannot deliver the HR strategy for you.